What do the sealed corners of those yellowed envelopes still hold after half a century of silence? As we step back into the chilling shadows of the Zodiac killer, new forensic insights linger like whispers from an unsolved past. We start in Winter's Breath, a turnout off Lake Herman Road, December 1968. Headlights off, frost on the grass, gunshots cracking like thrown stones on ice. Two teenagers, a quiet lane, a cartridge's metallic glint under a sheriff's flashlight. Summer 1969, Blue Rock Springs Park. Fireworks dying, mosquitoes whining over warm asphalt, a car door half ajar.
A hand with a flashlight, a voice curt and smooth. Bullets slap the night again. Minutes later, a payphone rings. A steady, almost bored confession bleeds through the line, as if reading a grocery list. By August, envelopes arrive in newsrooms.
Stamps pressed crooked. Ink rows of strange symbols, blocky and patient like a tiled floor. 3 letters a demand to print the enclosed cipher. Readers spread the paper over breakfast, coffee steam curling in the air, eyes snagging on shapes that refuse to yield. A school teacher and his wife lean over their table a week later, pencils tapping, patterns building. The 408-character grid gives up its grim brag. The thrill of hunting people, the promise of being collected in the afterlife. That voice hardens in mid-September on a sunlit shoreline at Lake Berryessa. A black hood, a white crosshair, stitched bold. Cord bites wrists. The air smells of dust and oak leaves. A knife flashes like a dull mirror. On a car door, he writes with thick pen. Dates, a place, the words by knife. October winds spill over Presidio Heights. A taxi drifts to the curb, a boy watches from a window. A glove wipes the cab with calm precision. Sometime later, a newsroom desk receives a square of shirt, brown now, once red, folded in a taped seam. The letters keep coming. A bus bomb sketch traced in felt tip. A map with a crosshair over Mount Diablo and the phrase radians and inches. A short strip of symbols claiming my name is, before collapsing to deflection. Months turn to years, taunts harden into ritual. A Halloween card with a skeleton dangling. A note after the film The Exorcist sneering and fractured spelling. The 340-character cipher sits like a brick in the public mind, inert and stubborn for decades. Under laboratory light, paper becomes landscape. The air hums below refrigeration units, a fog of cold breath rising under face shields. Advances sharpen the blade. Tiny swabs graze stamp edges, the gums that once met a tongue. Adhesives, brittle as fallen leaves, release flecks so small they vanish against tweezers' steel. Technicians move like divers, slow and deliberate, to keep the past from slipping away again. Old methods chased short strands and broke them further. New ones coaxed damaged fragments to speak. Single-cell capture isolates a lonely epithelial trace from a sea of paper fibers. Library prep kits, tuned for ancient remains, embrace the ruined. Sequencing machines chatter through the night, translating broken code into digital strings. It is not magic, even when it looks like it from across the glass. Negative controls stand like sentries. Profiles of every gloved hand enter the ledger. Contamination isn't a ghost story. It's dust, skin, breath, time. Yet progress builds. Single nucleotide polymorphism panels gather enough markers for genealogical triangulation when luck and legality align. YSTRs whisper about paternal lines. Mitochondrial reads sketch maternal branches. Prosecutors weigh privacy boundaries. Databases open doors with conditions. Investigators do not just fish. They map. They measure where a payphone stood and where a suspect claimed to be. How mail routes braided through the bay. Which corner stores sold that kind of pen. They comb the adhesives of every letter and the stamp backs that were never water-soaked.
In the hum of the biohood, a technician watches a droplet creep along a pipette tip, a universe on a bead, and hopes the next run will push the unknown toward a name without toppling the fragile scaffold of evidence that must hold in court. Even as evidence ages in climate-controlled drawers, the killer's sign remains vivid in crowded rooms. Newspaper stacks crackle under the weight of time. Every reprint revives the crosshair like a logo. After the first rain of letters, Hollywood borrowed the shape and the fear.
A rogue shooter calling himself Scorpio prowls through a 1971 thriller. A bus becomes a threat again, fiction echoing the headline that fed it. Decades later, a filmmaker frames a city in drab greens and nicotine glass, corridors of file cabinets stretching like aisles in a church. The glow of monitors replaces newsroom din. Fonts snap into place, stamps blur across macro lenses. Rain lives in every shot. Viewers study the film like a case file, freeze-framing hands, faces, coupons, the wobble of a wrist holding a pen, as if the past could be trapped in 24 frames per second. Beyond theaters, living rooms turn into archives. Basement shelves bow with binders. Thumbtacks bite cork. Red thread maps highways and water.
The late-night hiss of a scanner, the tinny spin of a microfilm reader, a cursor blinking over a message board thread running for 1,000 pages. Amateur codebreakers stare at the 340 grid until the symbols swim. In 2020, a small international trio snaps it loose. The decrypted message brags of fearlessness and refuses to deliver identity, another step sideways from capture. That solve, born from pattern recognition algorithms and human stubbornness, renews the chase.
New podcasts scrape a new layer of myth. Social feeds swarm under a familiar emblem. Meanwhile, the families of the dead endure a chorus that too often overlooks them. They hold photographs that smell faintly of cardboard and closets, and remember warm voices that do not live on film. The cultural glow is a fire that both lights and blinds, preserving details while distorting scale, proving that a symbol can outlive the hand that drew it. Cold case rooms today look like quiet spacecraft. Whiteboards hold timelines in rows that breathe more than they shout. Jurisdictional lines, once rigid, have softened. Detectives from Vallejo, San Francisco, and the counties in between trade scans and chain of custody histories, nodding a partnership that did not exist when the first envelope landed on a city desk. Machine learning models study the slope of certain letters, the peculiar lift in a lowercase r, the arc of a G's tail, not to pronounce guilt, but to rank similarity and prioritize the next path to walk. Geospatial analysts layer payphone sites over work schedules and highway ramps, overlaying old bus routes with bomb diagrams, the angle of sunlight on a Saturday with the shade line of a tree in a turnout where a car once idled. Tips still arrive on crisp mornings and at 3 a.m. in a rainstorm. Some are echoes from older echoes, names that internet crowds have chewed to threads. Others are fresh. A storage locker key at the bottom of a toolbox. A photograph that places the symbol on a jacket at a picnic. A letter that resembles the hand but tilts harder downward at the end of a line. Private collectives float confident declarations, convinced their man is the one. Agencies answer with caution and paperwork, the measured gait required when the stakes write themselves in headlines. On a lab bench, a microsample waits in a sealed tube from a newly opened envelope, adhesive still amber under lamplight. Across the hall, a historian scrolls through union rosters and county directories, building a net that may one day rustle as something swims through. We stand in that hallway between rooms, the hum of machines through one door, the soft crackle of newsprint through another, the silent weight of a city that has learned to live with a legend. Time has scoured away much, yet not everything. We can tighten the map, refine the profile, trace kin through branching trees. We can soften myth with fact, restore victims' names to the center, and stitch the disparate efforts into one fabric that does not tear when pulled.
In the end, a cipher can be a grid of symbols or a person's life wrapped in secrets. As potential leads surface in modern cold case investigations, one question remains: can we ever decrypt the final cipher of this haunting enigma? Subscribe for more Midnight Legends.